History Inside a Nutshell, the show where we sail into our port of call discussing maritime history. After filming a video about the Titanic's captains, I thought I would do the same with the Lusitania's captains. And this time, I am not narrating this for Lusitania month. Instead, this will be narrated by my good friend DK. DK, thank you so much for narrating this video. I really do appreciate it. And until then, I will leave you in the capable hands of DK as we talk about the captains of the Lusitania.
The captains of the RMS Lusitania. On the 7th of May 1915, the Cunard liner the RMS Lusitania sank off the coast of Ireland after being struck by a torpedo by the German sub U-20. At the time of the sinking, the captain who sailed the vessel was Captain William Turner, and in the aftermath, he was blamed for putting the vessel, the crew, and passengers in danger. After the disaster, the organization didn't trust Turner. It's with this lack of trust that Turner's career went downhill. Although he was the vessel's last captain, he wasn't the first to command her. Over her career, the Lusitania had 5 captains, including one who sailed on her twice. Although we aren't going to go into their full lives, we are concentrating on the captains' careers with the Cunard Line as well as their time on the vessel. Here are the 4 captains of the RMS Lusitania. James B. Watt. Captain James B. Watt joined the Cunard Line in 1873, and by 1907 he had been working with the shipping firm for 34 years. Throughout his time, he worked as a 3rd officer before securing his first command of the British Queen. He had also commanded the newest liners, including the Ivernia and Campania. He even earned high encomiums for his clever salvage of a passenger steamer named the Enam. When the Enam was disabled in mid-ocean, Watt heroically towed the Enam to safety through violent seas in Queenstown, saving it and the 500 people on board. Following the launch of the Lusitania, Cunard had appointed Watt to command the new Mammoth liner. This was an opportunity for Watt, given his experiences as captain and working alongside Cunard. In June of 1907, the 66-year-old Captain Watt was present at the Lusitania sea trials, but when he was in command of the vessel, the Lusitania jaunted while sailing down the River Clyde. Because of this, she had to quarantine in John Brown's yard throughout August. In September, Watt commanded the Lusitania on her maiden voyage between Liverpool and New York. But due to heavy fog during the voyage, the ship was unable to win the Blue Ribbon, a prize for a ship that achieves the highest average speed. In August of the following year, Watt and the Lusitania did manage to win the Blue Ribbon when her journey on the transatlantic shipping lane was in a record time of 4 days and 15 hours. The Lusitania would go on to win the Blue Ribbon twice more before her sister ship, the Maritime, took the prize in 1909. However, Watt retired in October of 1908. William Turner. The only captain to command the ship twice, Captain William Turner is infamous as the captain who became the scapegoat following the sinking of the vessel. Turner joined the Cunard Line in 1878, but he left in 1883 to gain additional experience with other shipping lines. He rejoined Cunard in 1889 after gaining his captain's license, though it wasn't until 1903 that he was given his first command on the ship Aleppo. Turner was a respected and popular captain, and because of this, he was given more opportunities to sail on other ships. In 1907, Turner was in command of the Lusitania before he was promoted to command the Lusitania's sister ship, the Maritime, and their cousin ship, the Aquitania, on their main voyages. While he was in command of the Lusitania, Turner became a witness to a rogue wave when, in December of 1911, the Lusitania damaged her bridge in a violent storm during a Christmas voyage from Liverpool to New York City. Following the outbreak of the First World War in 1914, Turner was reappointed as captain of the Lusitania for passenger service. However, Turner's actions would become his downfall when, in May of 1915, the Lusitania sank near Old Kinsale. When he was commanding the Lusitania, it was rumored and reported that Turner put the Lusitania's passengers and crew in danger by slowing down the ship while in a war zone, ignoring concerns from passengers during lifeboat drills, not giving clear instructions while the ship was sinking, and poor communication with the Admiralty. When the Lusitania was hit by the German sub U-20 on the 7th of May 1915, the Lusitania sank in 18 minutes. When the ship was making her final plunge, Turner stayed in the wheelhouse to go down with the Lusitania, but a huge wave swept him off the ship and into the ocean. Turner lost consciousness while he clung onto a deck chair in the Celtic Sea. He was later picked up by another ship, the Bluebell, 3 hours later. Upon learning of his survival following the disaster, the First Lord Admiral Jackie Fisher wrote to Winston Churchill, "As Cunard would not have employed an incompetent man, it is clear that Captain Turner is not a fool, but a knave." In January of 1917, Turner was given in command of the troop ship Ivernia when she sank in the Mediterranean Sea after being torpedoed by a different German sub, UB-47. When the Ivernia was sinking, Turner remained on the bridge until the ship's crew and passengers left the ship in rafts and lifeboats. He then struck out to swim when the vessel was down underneath his feet. Turner would never command a ship again. He was given a desk job before retiring from Cunard in 1919. James Clark Anderson. James Clark Anderson was a staff captain or senior officer of the Lusitania who had the responsibility of assisting the captain of a passenger's vessel, especially when he was in charge of safety apparatus, fire, and lifeboat drills. But like the Lusitania's captain, Anderson's actions in the sinking were questionable. Anderson joined Cunard in 1897 as the third officer aboard the Aleppo. By 1915, Anderson had full experience in various roles, including appointed chief officer and the captain of the Carria. In 1912, Anderson was given the rank of staff captain by the chairman of Cunard, Alfred A. Booth. This rank was given to experienced captains like Anderson in the wake of the Titanic disaster. This role was created to ease the burden of liner captains, which included covering cargo stowage holds and socializing with passengers. Anderson did just that when he was on board the Lusitania, when Anderson took up those duties while Captain Turner would have had time to concentrate on navigating and sailing the Lusitania. Anderson was appointed staff captain on the 12th of April 1915 before joining the vessel and crew a few days later. When the Lusitania arrived in New York City, Anderson learned about stowaways who were hiding in a pantry carrying photographic equipment. The stowaways snuck on board and went past the cordon of Secret Servicemen. The stowaways were discovered, and later it was revealed that they were German spies. In response, he had given the orders to confine them below decks. There are no records of what happened to the spies after the incident. On the 6th of May, Anderson had attended a party hosted by passenger George Kessler, who asked him a question. Earlier in the day, passengers had become concerned about a canceled lifeboat drill. They had began making inquiries. This included Kessler, who wondered why the lifeboat drill was canceled and why there was no organized drills during the voyage. In response to Kessler's inquiry, Anderson said, "That is the captain's decision." On the 7th of May, Anderson and Chief Steward John Jones had closed the bulkhead doors on E-deck. When the ship was torpedoed, Anderson reassured passengers that there was nothing wrong and suggested to one that they should return to the lounge. When the Lusitania was heavily listing to starboard, Anderson ordered women and children to attend to the life, but given the situation of the lifeboats, particularly on the port side, only a few were launched successfully. While lowering the lifeboats, Anderson came up with an idea to right the ship. He was known to have said to the ship's junior third officer, "Go to the bridge and tell them they are to trim her with the port ballast tanks." However, this plan had failed as officers told Anderson that doing this action was impossible. Then Anderson halted the launching of Lifeboat 10 before giving the order, "Stop lowering the boat, clear the boat, she's not going to sink, there is no danger." In the ship's final moments, it was reported that Anderson told passengers who could swim to leave an overturned collapsible lifeboat in the water. Anderson died in the sinking. His body was recovered in the water in a battered condition. James T. Charles. When Captain William was appointed to command the Mauretania in December of 1909, the Lusitania's new captain was Sir James T. Charles. Charles began working for Cunard in 1895 after he had completed his apprenticeship with the British Mercantile Marine Company. He began as a fourth officer before he went up the ranks, and by the late 1900s, he had commanded Cunard's 6 liners, including those who were requisitioned into naval and hospital ships during the First World War. When he became the new captain of the Lusitania, Charles would command the vessel on eastbound crossings, including making stops at Fishguard, Wales in the winter seasons and Queenstown, Ireland in the summer seasons. Charles was present when the Lusitania had major engine damage from thermal distortion and when the Admiralty installed gun mountings on the ships in preparations for the First World War. In 1913, Charles was appointed to command the Lusitania's sister ship, the Mauretania. In March of 1918, he began commanding the Lusitania's cousin ship, the Aquitania, which began a strong bond between him and the vessel. In the last year of the war, the Aquitania became a naval warship, and he and the vessel had transported over 47 million American troops. In addition to his services, Charles was a member of the British Departmental Committee on Boats and Davits and a nautical advisor to the British Delegation International Conference on Safety of Life at Sea. He was given a knighthood for his wartime services and was made Commodore of the Cunard Line. Charles was planning to retire in the summer of 1928 on what was to be his final voyage on the Aquitania. Charles was struck with an internal hemorrhage when the ship was traveling to Southampton from New York. Despite being advised to rest and sail in foggy weather, the dying captain commanded the Aquitania to Southampton safely. He died in the ship's chart room on the 16th of July 1928 at the age of 62. Daniel Dow. Captain Daniel Dow took command of the Lusitania in 1913. Captain James Charles was transferred to command of the Mauretania. There's no record of when Dow joined the Cunard Line, but beforehand he was an apprentice to another shipping company, Thales St. John Brocklebank. Dow was in charge of the Mauretania when, in 1910, he had witnessed the vessel gaining the blue ribbon from the Lusitania when the sister ship achieved a record westbound passage from Dobbs Rock to Sandy Hook in 4 days, 10 hours, and 50 minutes with a speed of 26.6 knots. When the First World War broke out, the Lusitania and Mauretania were immediately requisitioned by the Admiralty before the Lusitania underwent another Admiralty refit. However, the Admiralty later decided to not use the Lusitania as a cruiser ship because she consumed too much coal. He continued to command the Lusitania for 2 years until May 1915 when he had a nervous breakdown. The reason for Dow's breakdown was when he heard the Admiralty's decision for British merchant ships to fly neutral flags and make attempts to sink U-boats around the British Isles. The Lusitania, however, was ordered to fly the flags, and Dow was worried about the Lusitania becoming a target for the Germans and sinking without warning. Things escalated when in February of the same year, Dow was informed of a U-boat peril. Without giving the ship's position back to the Admiralty in code, Dow sailed the Lusitania back to Liverpool after eluding the vessel's escorts. He left the shipping line for the sake of his health. Dow is mentioned in John Weber's poem about the Lusitania disaster. Daniel Dow protests this British smuggling ring the prior chief suggests attacks these loads will bring. Following the Lusitania disaster, Dow returned to command of the Mauretania. It was rumored that during the war he evaded a torpedo, but there are no sources to support this. Dow would retire from Cunard Line in 1919. The captains of the Lusitania had been one of the tragedy and courage, especially in times of war. They were given opportunities to sail on her, the Mauretania, and the Aquitania. However, it is clear that some of the captains' feelings were ignored by the Admiralty because of the war-related affairs. Which captain do you think deserves more attention in the Lusitania's story? Share your thoughts in the comments.
If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe for future videos. Until next time, this has been History Inside a Nutshell, departing from the docks. Thank you so much for all of your support and enjoy the rest of your voyage.